today we will be discussing the future of business and the brilliance of evolution. Welcome to Radiant Genius Podcast. I'm Elsa Mehary, a creative strategist and feminine entrepreneur. Join me and the occasional guest where we will illuminate the path to brilliance in wellness, tech, and business trends. I will be guiding you through the journey of your inner genius to transform you into your most brilliant and badass self. Give yourself permission to live out loud at the brightest level. Welcome to this week's episode of Radiant Genius Podcast. I'm Elsa Mehary, creative strategist and entrepreneur. And I'm super excited to talk about all the stuff I have planned for you today. I love to observe what used to happen and what's currently happening and what I think is going to happen in the future. And the way that my astrological chart is set up, Aries rising in the house, I have a lot of impatience that I struggle with. And this impatience always helps me see how we can do things faster, how we can streamline. And I always try and keep in mind to not reinvent the wheel. It's not like, let's do it my way because it's better. But it's like, what can we do so that this is efficient? And I have I have to say, special skill set with efficiency. And I think it's also maybe contingency planning. Just because, I don't know, I'm Black, things are challenging. It's always, oh, you can't do that. So I'm like, all right, well, I am going to do it. But like, what can we do backdoor? What's another way? And that's led to me having this other skill set and also being a New Yorker. Being a New Yorker, it's like, you still got to get to work. There's a flood. Walk over the bridge. Trains, planes, automobiles. Like, there's always a way. And I think that the combination of New Yorker, being of color, living in the US where everything is more challenging, has led to this way that my brain works to see like, oh, we used to do it that way. We're doing it now this way. And in the future, we can do it another way. But I also see what we miss out on. And a lot of it is nuance and human connectivity. So I just want to share this little story, which please keep this in mind as we're listening to this entire series in terms of culture, in terms of human emotion, in terms of nostalgia, sensitivity. And I will say, when it comes to business, I don't have a lot of that element. I'm really direct, straightforward, like if you've ever worked with me and hope you will work with me, link in the bio. It's like, we're getting this done. Let's just focus on what we need to do. And there's very little sentimentality. And so I went to Ethiopia for the first time since I was born. I went for the first time. I returned, I would say, like 10 years ago, maybe 12 at this point, for my cousin's wedding shopping. She was having the wedding in the States, and her mom was shopping for all of the things that you need for like a traditional wedding that was going to happen in DC. And there's a special ceremony, which was not explained to me. I just was along for the ride. And the ceremony was a series of visits to plan the wedding and to get the dress. And so just the dress part of it was, I would say my aunt spent a week to 2 weeks. I was only there a couple weeks, visiting different dressmakers in the city. And it was the ceremony, I'll call it. You go, you have tea with the dressmaker. You look through the book with the dresses they've made for other clients. You chit chat with them, catch up maybe a little bit, maybe suggest what you would like. It's a whole situation. So, I just got there. I was like, what are we doing? Where are we going? What can we see? And so after like the third day of the dress ceremony situation, I was like, oh, I know what you want. I know what my cousin wants. I'll just do a sketch. I can draw, did the sketch. I was like, you're good. You don't have to go see any of these other people. I got you. My aunt was like, no, The whole situation was go to all the dressmakers. It was like, that was what you were supposed to do. That was tradition. That was how it was. And that's how it was going to be. And that's what she was doing. So I hired a driver and I went my way. And then she continued on and like did the rest of the ceremony with the dressmakers and whatever. I was out doing adventures. So I would say, keep that in mind. We're losing the nuance of the connection with some of these shifts in business. And that is not lost on me. That is not lost on a lot of people. But here we are. Okay, so first, I'm going to go through everything in business from branding to, I'm going to touch on some healthcare stuff, but a lot of stuff has changed. So I'm going to talk about the old way, the new way, what we've lost and what we've won. Pretty much this formula, I'm going to go through like 10 different elements. Okay, so if you have a business or a brand, I would say the old way was for you to have a website. You needed this epic website. The website was your whatever portfolio, would have all the information. Maybe you would display your products, book online, whatever. The new way is a landing page. And the landing page is literally, it's one unit. You scroll, you present whatever you have in a very simplistic, succinct, and you have to do all the things. It's almost like novel to short story to announcement. It's literally just you're announcing. And the loss, we're losing the depth of deep diving into the brand. The win, what's the win? There's a narrow startup cost for you to do a landing page. You get right to the point. You're like, boom, this is what I'm offering. Do you want it? Here's the information. And then people can make a decision. And I think people have pivoted to this model because low attention span. And we all know why that is, right? It's like too much information, too many things happening, too much going on. Design. I'm just jumping right to design because I'm a designer. And I've been deeply affected by this. A lot of people have. There's so much good about it. There's so much loss, right? So the old way was you had to hire a design. If you have a business, this is all in the context of a business. You had to hire a designer who was highly specialized in whatever platform to create whatever product, right? And I'm not talking about artists, right? There's a whole other realm. They're not problem solving for you. They're creating whatever needlecraft plus AI plus some paint plus this plus that. That's a whole other thing. This is, I have a brand. I need my product designed. Who's going to do it for me? Am I doing it myself? I'm going to hire somebody. So now the new way is DIY. People are doing it themselves and maybe hybrid. Maybe you hire a designer, but you're like, oh, thanks for the template. Now I can go off and create X. There's Canva, there's Squarespace. Everything is templated. That democratizes design, right? So it's like, yay, I have the power in my own hands to create. If I want to change it next month, if I want to reinvent, whatever. And that's great. It's easy. It's fun. What's the loss? The originality, the nuance, the really high level of creativity. There's nothing wrong with DIY. There's nothing wrong with hybrid. There's nothing wrong with low startup costs. You can start there, but people stay there. People are like, now that I can maybe afford to do more, they're like, let's do the least. And that's like overall society. So what you're seeing is like, everything is copy. Everything is like a replica of another thing. Now, I'm not a coder. So if I design a website, I'm using a template, but I'm doing my own version of it, right? And I would also say that when you see this at really, really high levels, if you see this at like people are just copy pasting and it's like a huge company. And I'm like, I know you have a budget. I know you have the team. Like, why are we doing that? Right? So you see some of the things in the wrong places and it's really unfortunate, right? So it's good for some, not good for all. And it also does a disservice to the people who have the originality, the creativity that can be doing the most. And they're often told to do the least because like it's easier. Marketing, the old way. This is somewhat controversial. Obviously, I'm from the old way. I'm from press, I'm from publishing. I'm from that like perfectionist realm, the gate kept realm. That traditional advertising, TV, print, radio. That's obviously the Netflix model, which is like, how are we going to reinvent? How are we going to, but then it goes back around, right? So there was Netflix and then there was Blockbuster. Blockbuster was like, we're good. Netflix was like, we got to shift, right? And then everybody copied Netflix. And now we have like 15 or whatever plus streaming platforms, which basically it's cable, but now you got to pick a level of $9 plus ads, a $20 without ads, plus this, plus a blah, blah, plus blah, blah, for what? And then there's like 15 of those versions that you have to figure out, like, do I want to pay $20 per, right? The new way, boop, social media campaign, influencers. And what's the loss? Huge loss, actually. For some things, you're losing a deeper long-term brand building through sustained campaigns. You're losing a lot of trust. You're losing your control over your brand messaging. If you're using influencers, things can really spiral out with that, but it could go viral. And that's a potential win. You could have instant access to a global audience if you align with the right, let's say, creator, influencer, and it's a gamble, right? You have faster feedback loops. You have the ability to pivot quickly. Like everything is just going so fast, right? There's a lower cost for high engagement, but you really have to understand how these platforms work. You risk, if the platform penalizes you or shuts you down, you've lost that access. So that one is really interesting, the old way and the new way. And I would say the old way with the traditional, like, once your thing was in press, you could find it. It was going to be there. You had it like a physical copy and that you could say like, hey, I was here, right? But also not a lot of people had access to that. TV, how many people could be on TV or the newspaper or on the radio? So there's higher accessibility. Anybody can go on and do a campaign, but there's competition, right? Your campaign has to be innovative, which goes back to our original. How innovative can you be when everything is templated? Yeah. Okay. Sales. So sales, the old way. I always think of, and this is so horrible, Jehovah's Witness for sales, like the door to door. So that's like old school, right? But there's in person and there's cold calls. We still get a lot of cold calls. I don't know how effective this is in conversion. Maybe that's like a donation based system where people call and like sign up to blah, blah, blah museum or donate to this or that. Or I don't really respond well to those, but it does work still for some folks. The new way is these automated sales funnels, which I find to be exhausting because I get 100 emails a day and like selling me things. And it's all text. I'm like, can we get a photo? Can we get a gift? Like, give me something. Like, I don't want to read 50 emails, right? So we have these e-commerce platforms. We have these sales funnels. And what's the loss? Personal connection, relationship building. Now, if you live in a city, you're not opening a door for anybody, probably that you don't know, traveling salesman. So this is a way that someone can just be in your inbox. But a lot of that stuff goes to spam. A lot of that stuff you never see. But what is the win? Because there's always a win. Scalability. You can really get to so many more people. And it's 24/7. You'd be selling all day and all night. Someone could just be, you can catch them at that vulnerable moment where they're like, I need this product. It's where I am. And this is actually going to help fix my life if I get these grounding sheets. Maybe. Or compression socks. And you don't need direct interaction. You don't have to risk COVID. You can just click the button and get the sale. Lower operational costs, automated systems, right? Systems is something I love to talk about because, again, the way my brain works, I can see if there's a system, if there isn't a system. You have no system, it's not sustainable. If you have no system, everything is highly disorganized. I grew up with a lot of Virgo folks. Virgo folks have systems, Virgo folks, and also I would say, could I be neurodivergent? Probably. So there's a level of patterning that happens automatically, right? So I'm already and always creating systems for how I do things. And I see how other people could use the system to do things and make their life easier. Because again, it's all about that simplicity. And when there's so much information, you have to have systems. Sometimes if I see someone's desktop and it's like covered in folders. I already know. No systems, no nothing. It's like, how? I have like 3 folders. Everything is organized. If I look at something that I like, it goes into a folder. Boom. And then I can access it. And I know where everything is in my brain. Everything is organized. And it's like, going forward, you have to have systems. So the old way, complex, customized software solutions. The new way, and again, everything is going towards simple. These no-code tools. There are these Notion. If you are not on Notion, what are you even doing? Notion. Just sign up for free. Like, watch a YouTube video. Thank me later. Zapier. So they're these product management systems. So product managers are amazing. You don't always need them, but in our lives these days, I think people need personal project management systems because you have a business, because you have 15 different healthcare providers, or you have all your kids' best friends, or whatever you need to organize it on these platforms. Have a dashboard, you can organize your whole life. And it isn't as complicated as it used to be. What's the loss here? Deep customization, control of the process, and used to need an IT team, right? So then the loss there is a lot of these IT teams won't have jobs, right? You need this for system integration and maintenance. And I haven't been a part of a big corporation for a while, so I'm not sure how this is rolling out, if they're just using 1 or 2 people, but everything is getting simpler and simpler. What is the win, right? Obviously, it's easier to use, the democratization. I can have my own system. I didn't have to hire a tech guy for the Notion setup. I did it myself. They have a little template. I can organize anything that I need. It's affordable. I just pay my 1 subscription. They need a subscription. If anyone is a tech person listening, an engineer, we need a subscription app to organize all the subscriptions because it's spitting out. And maybe someone knows about one that exists. Let me know, because at this point, like the apps just for this podcast alone that I have to maintain, and that I had to let go of like my streaming subscriptions because I was like, I'm not having more than 20 subscriptions. Like, it's out of control at this point. So I just have HBO for now, which leads us to service. So the old way of service is something that is really controversial because service is about human interaction, right? So how do you streamline that and still make it human? So the old way, personal, in-person service, traditional customer support, right? I don't even really have to talk about this one, but AI, automated service solutions, omni-channel support. What's the loss? Obviously, you don't get to talk to a person. And these chatbots don't often have, I still do. I will just be like customer service, press the 0 until I get someone. Because it's nuanced sometimes. And the problem is, even when you get the person at this point, like, you have to live a little deeper knowledge, because I'll just tell you, I changed my AT&T system phone plan that I've had forever. I've had a cell phone since 1999. And whenever I got an iPhone, I got it like early days. But I've had the same AT&T plan. And from whenever, I just haven't changed it. And maybe it got upgraded here or there, whatever. But they used to have this grandfathered free HBO service. You get free HBO with your plan. And I don't know, I upgraded my service to get like a hotspot or something like this, which I do use. And it's a little bit cheaper, but I got the hotspot, and customer service guy didn't say, oh, you're going to lose your HBO free forever and you can't go back. And we don't offer it with any of the new programs. And too bad for you. And it was just gone, just like that. And then, of course, once I figured it out, I called them back and I was like, oh, well, just put me on the plan with the HBO. They were like, nope, sorry, too late. Too late, too bad. We didn't know, we didn't care, right? So again, it's like, I did speak to a human, but it's like the level of personalized still wasn't there. Like, they didn't look through my whole plan to be like, let's do a comparative analysis. Like, is it really going to be better for you? No. It's like that, obviously, with everything. Healthcare, everything is just like, what's the easiest? Because he's probably doing 15 jobs. Like, I don't even know. There's no like high touch service with nuanced understanding of individual customer needs. And I'm still salty. HBO loss. But what's the win? The win, scalable. You have allegedly efficient support available, right? Because maybe instead of waiting an hour because he's yakking up with me, like it's only really a 10 to 15-minute wait. So you have more options across multiple channels. I can be on chat with them. I could be emailing. I could be social media with them. Like, hey, this problem needs to be fixed. I could be talking, which actually I do. I do all of them. And like whoever hits me first, I'm like, okay, let's solve this. Product development. So this is for my tech folks, right? And I think about this a lot too when there's a lot of loss here, the product development, especially depending on what products you're using. The old way, you'd have these extended R&D phases where you're testing the product and making sure it works. You do market research, you do long development cycles. And I'll tell you, just from a few of the people I've been working with, skipping all that, get the product out, done. The new way, agile development, minimum viable product. Like, let's just get something, let's get it funded, let's iterate. And like, if it's good, it's good. And like, let's see if it takes, let's see if the market likes it, if we have the audience for this. And it is sometimes better, but I really want to say after that phase, going back in and doing the market research, doing a development cycle, really fixing, really testing, really seeing, is this, but once it's up and out, it's like, oh, good enough, let's go, let's roll. And I think that is one of the losses, to be honest, like the extensive upfront research and comprehensive product development and testing of the features, the detailed planning, the risk mitigation no longer happens. And that's where you have like the beta and then you roll out like an upgrade, which we have to suffer from content upgrades because it's like they just rolled out like whatever. And then, so yes. That's more like the technical stuff. I feel like something physical, jewelry, like I'm not going to be recalling a pair of whatever to like, I have a better version. It's like you get what you get. So this is not obviously across every industry, but specifically tech. But what is the win on this? The win is faster time to market with iterative feedback and improvements if possible. You have new products there. From concept phase to go phase, it's faster, which could be good depending. I just hope certain things aren't skipped. We're seeing this is a whole other conversation with AI, things that are just like, let's just see and then fix it later. It's the really fix it later that needs to happen that I think that step is skipped. And that is something that is a bit of a loss. Customer feedback, yes. So customer feedback, like I remember in the magazine world, we would put out a product and the product would be the print issue. And we would do these focus groups. Did they like it? What did they like? Which article did they respond to? Tell us more. Which model? Which lipstick? Like so specific. And then you would get paid. Like, I don't know, they paid these people $200 something per to sit there and give their feelings about what they've consumed, the content. Was it great? Was it not great? And I don't know how often, I don't think it was every issue, but it was, they do these periodic tests and then they would have us, the team, sit after the marketing team went and like compiled the data to say, they really hated this, blah, blah, blah. No one even read X, Y, and Z, or like they loved this. And then we would go into like more articles like the one they loved. I mean, it was a little ridiculous, to be honest, because I'm not even going to get into why it was ridiculous, but that's all gone, I think. They do sometimes in certain maybe industries focus groups, but it's very different. These periodic surveys and focus groups, the new way, it's like real-time analytics, this continuous customer service feedback, which is like the product was trash. And they're platforms that offer this information. Like I know folks, before they even buy something, they're looking on the platform for the feedback, right? And it's like, you're the first buyer. So like, there is none. But if there's bad feedback, like you really have to be discerning because there's bots just all over the place providing false information. But so what is the loss? Obviously, you have limited frequency of this feedback collection, and it's less timely, and you're relying on these traditional methods that may not capture emerging trends. So I think also, while I hated these focus groups, and I don't know if it really serves anyone, I think it was really the way that the focus groups were done were not super productive, but there's a loss of connection with real people. It's the same thing. It's the human connection, right? But on these platforms, you get the instant data, right? Because it's all listed for you. So you just have to like Google it up. You get all your data. You get your analytics charted out in a click, essentially. And from that, you can quickly adapt your product and your service based on what your client feedback is. But I will say this, I would not limit creativity and development to what your clients need. There are creatives in the world who develop things that the customer cannot envision. And then after it's created, it's like, oh my God, what would I have done with that? Like the Apple iPhone. That didn't develop from a focus group. So you're never going to get this deep level of like what they really want and need from these focus groups. You're just going to get a limited survey. So all in all, I feel like things are moving from this very slow to this very like, what's the fastest? And ultimately, like we're losing. And I feel there is a potential to have a hybrid. Like maybe instead of never having these in-person experiences, like have a few, have a yearly, have a special collection of high performing clients to come in, reward them, pay them whatever, gift them, and do like a workshop with them or have like a really innovative experience with customers and see what features would really work well, and to get the human interaction, because a lot of times people respond to if something is wrong, then they'll correct it, but they're not necessarily giving you innovation. Why? Because why would they, right? That's not what they have to do. They have other things to do. Okay. So obviously workplace culture, like there's levels of that, but like the old way, I'm going to even do a future prediction for this. So obviously the old way, we have the traditional office, 9 to 5, or for some people, many people, it was really 7 to 8, sadly, especially if you worked in finance, hierarchical structures. You had a boss, they told you what to do, you just did it, and often you were overworked and underpaid. Okay, so we all know what that is. I will say thank you to COVID for remote. And tech was a little bit ahead of the curve. I was able to experience this when I was in Miami for a hot second. A lot of tech companies were remote before COVID, and then it just expanded out. So they basically set up the framework for the rest of us to jump into that model. So we now have hybrid work models, right? Half in the office, half out of the office. Some people live internationally, et cetera, et cetera. And there's these new flat organizational structures, which that's also hybrid too. So which is confusing, I think, to employees. Like, do I report to you, or am I also like creating the rules for how the company's running, right? So there's a lot of benefit to these flat structures because you get so much good innovative information from some employees, but the benefits, I think, work best when you're getting a profit from that. And so in the startups, they have it set up where you benefit, you have equity, right? So it's like, we're all part of this. And then if we sell, then you also have a win. Some companies, and I worked for one, is using this setup structure, but not giving people equity. And so what does that look like? That looks like hybrid. I'm your boss. You do what I say, but you also contribute to the build of the company, and you're responsible as if you have equity of making certain decisions, high level, which really the boss should be making, but I'm going to just put that on you. And heavy responsibilities, heavy all the things, and the illusion of democratic work environment, right? And so the shade of that is people are taking advantage of some of these shifting systems, and it's not super ethical because you can't say anything about it because guess what? It's still hierarchical. Okay. What's the loss, right? So the loss in that you're missing out on teams. I don't see my people anymore. Who am I going to coffee with? Who can I smile and flirt with? Or someone ask me how I'm doing or recommend the latest book, right? So physical presence, in-person collaboration. Now I have to be on Zoom trying to figure out, and it's just energetically less effective, I think. So this one is huge, that physical presence. Huge. Also for the younger people, this is a really big deal for them as well, because you learn a lot through osmosis. You learn a lot through watching other people. You learn a lot of nuance through thank you, you're welcome, hello, goodbye. That's all going out the window. People are just starting off like, I need this. And literally like no sort of social skills. It's baffling. It's really unfortunate. So that's a blow to the society because these things are not being taught through osmosis of observing. Like, okay, this is what happens. This is what you do. You literally cannot teach every little thing. Some things you just have to see. Some things you just have to experience. I used to be super, super shy when I was young. And what I experienced was like, oh, the people who talk a lot have the advantage. The people who speak up have the advantage. They might not be, super extra this or that, but they communicate and they get. Communicate, you get. Something really basic, but I, as a young child, needed to see this to get it. And there's so many things. That's like something very, very basic, but it shifted how I showed up in the world. I started speaking more. I started being like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I need this and that. Or, I wasn't the last person or thinking like, they understand that I need food today. No, nobody cares, right? So it's like that shifted me. So it's huge, this loss in business, right? You're not learning from mentors, from unofficially superiors, or people who've done this before. Cadence, how to speak, how to move, how to when and where, why, and what. You can't get everything from a YouTube video. You just can't, or even a podcast. But like, what are some of the wins? Flexibility. I don't have to sit next to this person that's negative. I don't want to hear their whatever all day, right? So like, that's a win. So like, how do we get around this? I don't even know, but I'm just telling what's going on. There's some things coming. There's some things, avatars, being in spaces. I think the whole energy thing is something that has to be brought back in, right? Like, how do you get to know a person through the computer? You can't really. You're knowing an essence of them, but you don't get to, it's not a 3D, right? It's just like what I'm showing you. You don't know what's under this hat. You're just getting like a little bit. You're just getting the top. You're not getting the full. And so that is something that I hope can be solved, right? Because right now the wins are really great. I think the prediction for me, it's going to be, we're leaving the 40 to 80 hour weeks, 80 hours for the finance people. And this is corporate employee. This is not, if you're an entrepreneur, you work for yourself. It's just, it's not even a conversation. Like, you create what you want to create for you. That works for you. Some entrepreneurs work 2 hours a day from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., do all their thing once their process is streamlined. And then the rest of it is creating connections if they are lucky enough to know some non-9-to-5 people and living their best life, right? But you have, for the corporate structure, they have an access to a wider talent pool internationally. They can go on Fiverr and like have half their team freelance that way. I don't recommend they do that because that's a whole other situation, but you can have increased innovation. You can have more collaborative teams, possibly. Again, The win for me is the flexibility, but I feel like in this category, it's a lot of loss, to be honest. I don't recommend offices, but they make the offices better, more feminine, more nature, more inviting, more cozy, more like home. People wouldn't mind going so much to the office. I get the whole like, make it like a play gym, you know what I mean? But I don't necessarily need a slide or like a skateboard ramp in my office. Like, you know what I mean? I think there are other things that would really benefit and shift for that to reverse and come back around. Okay, I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do education. So this one is a big one. And for all these things, I would say there's a lot of resistance on both sides because some people just want what worked for them versus what could collectively be optional for many people. So education, I would say all the time that I don't even know how old our education system is, but like if anything needs to change, this needs an overhaul, 1,000%. I would say the workforce and education go hand in hand because it's like education is training you to be in the workforce. You sit at a desk for 8 hours and then you go to an office and you sit at that desk. All right. So it's like obviously very parallel. So that's also switching, right? You're leaving these traditional classrooms and these degree programs, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, to get this degree. And you have to people want things fast. People want to like learn something, iterate. It's going to go hand in hand with this, like the faster product development in the same way. An online course, certified, micro credentials, these ed tech platforms. And there's knowledge that is coming through in a new way. Also, it isn't like through a book, an outdated book at that, that's an old group of colonial white men have deemed the truth, basically. There's educational systems that are coming from ancient knowledge, indigenous cultures that like you can't get from, you're only getting from the source. It's, I would say, spoken knowledge. And are they going to be giving certifications for that? I think people are going to acknowledge this as, in general, people will open up to not having these antiquated traditional accreditations for you to learn something, for you to acknowledge that it is valuable, for you to know that it is, people have learned wisdom, learned experience. If I've grown up in a difficult situation or I've had 15 jobs, that I've learned the difference between good boss and a bad boss or a toxic environment, a healthy environment, I probably could teach a class on leadership initiatives and healthy work environments. I'm just saying. And it's like, would I need a certificate for that? And I think people are going to now be more accepting of these types of knowledge and teaching from that base of learned experience. And it's going to be faster too. It's going to be like, I take this course and it's going to be simplified. Because I mean, if you think about a lot of the stuff that we needed to know and you don't really use now, that's all going to fall away. I'm not even going to get into like why we had to do all that. But I will say this, I did a certification. So I'm one of these super educated, both my parents are like PhD people and like educators also, and very, very much about education. So that was in my formative years, very important. I have a traditional degree and I would say like a career academic, like I'm always studying and not necessarily taking courses at a university, but I'm just studying. I study people, I study things, I research all the time. I'm always learning. And it's like, for a lot of the stuff that I know, I don't have a degree for it, right? So I have a couple of different degrees in different things, but like, if I could get a degree in all the things that I knew, like it would just be levels. So that is something that will be communicated where people will just be allowed to have knowledge outside of the traditional structures and will be honored for that knowledge. And I took the very, very last course from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, they were changing their format from in-person to digital. And they used to give these lectures, and Deepak Chopra would come, and like all these really famous wellness people would come and speak. And it was at Lincoln Center in a big auditorium. People would come from out of town, and it was like twice a month in the course. Maybe the course was 6 months, but basically there'd be all these suitcases lined up. People would come for the conference. It was like a big deal, but it was cost, right? You'd have to fly in if you didn't live in New York. You have to stay in a hotel, whatever. They didn't pay for that. But you got to see Deepak live. You got to meet all these people. They would make you do, it was all day. It was like 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. You do exercises. Like you would have lunch with the people near you who were starting businesses that you kept in touch with. These were your classmates. Blah. So when I started, the class before me was that class that got the in-person. My class was the first year of the old digital platform, but they let us come to one of the weekends. And when I tell you, I met so many amazing people and the speakers, and it was just like the energy in the room. It was, like you're born to a political conference or something. It was like international and inspirational, motivational. And I still remember some of the ideas of what people were starting and doing. And then I went back to my digital class that I did whenever I had some free time. And I felt sad, to be honest. I was like, I'm not going to meet any new people. And they had the option where you could sign up and like do homework or have like a work buddy. And I don't know, I think I tried to sign up and I was just never good in like, if I didn't actually meet you, like you're not a real person to me. It's very sad. But please still leave a comment and I will respond. But for that real connection, like I need to meet you. I need to see you face to face. I need to feel your energy. And like, it just didn't happen. So I did my class. I got my little certificate and I was happy. And it was cheaper as well. And they were able to be global. And like, you could be living in Brazil in the village and like a certification. And it was genius and it was a plan. But the loss, you were making friends. You weren't meeting people. You weren't getting business co-founders. You weren't connecting. You weren't hearing about all these amazing things. You weren't getting to have tea with Deepak. And I'll just say across all of these shifts, that is the biggest shift. And that's all I have for you today. And thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Radiant Genius. Next week, we will have a special guest. Until next time.
Thanks for listening. Sending soothing calm to your nervous system. Hit subscribe and join me on this feminine-led entrepreneurial journey. The Radiant Genius Podcast, where we discuss all things brilliant.